Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, I've just recorded an amazing episode with two very special guests who you're going to meet in a moment. We had a live chat all about weddings and why they cost what they do. So if you've ever wondered to yourself, why are weddings so expensive? Are wedding suppliers trying to hoodwink me? Is there a cheaper way of doing things? I have all the answers for you because my two guest experts have joined me to share everything that they know. So I had Caroline and Elaine from the Help I'm Getting Married Facebook group, which is a community of over 70,000 engaged couples all across Ireland. And so they really have their finger on the pulse. They know what they're talking about. And so if you've ever wondered things about what weddings cost and why, as well as some practical ways that you can save money on your own wedding, then carry on listening because you are going to love this. Well, welcome, Caroline and Elaine. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast this week.
Thanks for having us, Kelly.
So for people who don't know, Caroline and Elaine are the geniuses behind the Help I'm Getting Married Facebook group. How many people are in the group these days? It's like around 70,000 people, isn't it?
We're just coming up to 70,000.
That is amazing. Okay, so if people want to know, these ladies are the experts. And so the reason that I've invited them to join me today is because, you guys are on the ground. You hear what all the couples in Ireland are asking. You know what people are planning for their wedding. You've got your finger on the pulse when it comes to trends and everything. And so I thought it would be really helpful to hear from you guys a little bit about what people are asking when it comes to budgets and saving money. And, maybe between the three of us, we can help couples to understand why weddings cost what they do. So first, I think for couples to know, it's probably quite helpful to have an idea of what other couples are spending on their wedding. And so in January, Weddings Online actually did a survey with hundreds of couples, and the average wedding budget turns out to be a little over 33,000 euros, not including the honeymoon. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, okay. I understand why people say that weddings are so expensive. But interestingly, out of the people that we surveyed, 53% of them went over budget. So they're probably spending more than the 33,000. 37% took out a loan. 31% got help from their parents. But most interestingly, despite the fact that the price is quite a lot and people took out loans, only 9% of couples chose their supplier based on the lowest price, which I think is really interesting. So
that's so interesting because when the couples start off planning and they see these figures, 33,000 euro, and it's like, oh, wow. And the initial get-go might be, okay, let's look at, finding the cheapest photographer.
Yeah.
But then once you get into it and, you get into the swing of it and you realize that, the cheapest is not always the best. The most expensive is not always the best. But you can see from that, only 9% went for the cheapest option. That says a lot.
It does. I found that encouraging to be like, okay, people are being smart and savvy, and they're not just being like, things are expensive, let's go for the cheap one. So I think if anyone's looking for the very first wedding planning tip of this episode, it's don't necessarily go for the cheapest option. Hey, sometimes the cheapest option also ticks all the other boxes, but don't just pick people only based on price.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. I thought what might be helpful is to have a look at some of the different types of wedding things, different suppliers, different services, and maybe for you guys to help me and the couples to understand a little bit more about why some suppliers charge what they do. Because I do hear quite often people say things like, if I just had to phone this venue and say it's a birthday party, they're going to charge me less. Or the same thing with a cake or whatever. If I just tell someone it's a birthday party or it's just a random bouquet of flowers, I'm going to get things for cheaper. And they think they're being smart, but actually it's, when you get something for a birthday party, it's not the same as getting something for a wedding. And I suppose what I would love people to understand is why there's a difference, and to really, be able to make sense of the fact that wedding suppliers are not trying to hoodwink us. There's a reason that they charge what they do. So do you guys have any examples of suppliers that you can say this is why they charge what they do? They're not trying to pull a fast one on you.
I would say, I'd like to jump on the flowers thing, because you can see some fabulous flowers in the high street stores. When you go to your supermarket and you pick up a beautiful bunch of flowers and they're just gorgeous and cheap as chips. And you say, my goodness, if this was wedding flowers, they'd be clocking up the zeros. But there's a very good reason why wedding flowers are expensive. And wedding florists are more expensive than your local supermarket. I have seen florists at work, and I mean, their expertise and their knowledge is second to none. You have, before your big day, you will have many conversations with your florist, and your florist will know which flowers to recommend for your December wedding. Imagine, if you're on a budget and you want roses really in December, your florist is going to say to you, I'm going to have to import them from God knows where. So the flowers have to be imported. They have to be top grade. They have to be excellent. Your florist has to know how to prepare them, how to store them, how to keep them. He has to have a cold room. They will work extremely late into the night before your wedding, prepping your flowers, making sure everything is as it should be, deliver them, do the whole thing. Can you imagine walking up the aisle with your beautiful bouquet of flowers and petals are dropping off? Heads are dropping off the roses or whatever. That's never going to happen when you have a professional prepare your bouquets, and that's what you're paying for. Just so much goes on before you ever walk in the door of the church or your venue, and that's why you're paying a lot more. And when people are told that and they understand that, when couples understand the professionalism behind a bouquet of flowers or all the other suppliers they get, that's when you realize why you're paying a lot more than if it was a 18th birthday party.
That's so true. And I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience before where you've bought a really beautiful bouquet of flowers just for your lounge. And the other day, I actually bought some really beautiful roses and I put them out in a vase, and we were having people over and the flippin' roses hadn't opened yet. And I thought, what a waste. Yeah. And then they opened a couple of days later. But it just made me think, if somebody had to go down to the high street, get a lovely bouquet of roses and have to wait until they open, but they don't know when it's going to be. And then, they might start wilting later in the day. And so you're right. It's things are timed really perfectly. The suppliers understand, some of the technical things that.
And your florist can't hope that the blooms will be open on the morning of your wedding. She or he has to know that they will be open on the morning of your wedding, because there's no rerun. We can't have a do-over. It has to be done, and that's what you're paying for. You're paying for expertise, and you're paying for the best, and it's worth it on the day. It's worth it.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, Elaine, I think I started talking over you earlier. You were about to say something.
I think it's the same with musicians, ceremony music and bands. It's very the same. People can say, oh, why can't I just get Jack, who plays down in the local pub with his band, to play for the wedding? It's not the same thing. Your band will work with you before your wedding. They'll go through songs that you want played, some songs you don't want played. And if there's a song, for instance, your first dance, if they don't know the song that you want, they're going to put the time in before your big day to learn the song. They have to rehearse it. There's so much that goes in behind it. And then on the day, you're there and you've all your guests. And what do you want? You want them all on the floor. And a good wedding band will keep your floor full all night. So if they start off with music, they'll read the room and they'll start playing, and they have a few people, and we can get more people on this dance floor. They'll know how to change it up very quickly to get more people on the floor. And another difference, I think, between a pub band and, say, a wedding band is, with a good wedding band, you're going to have the interaction. You're going to have the interaction with the guests. They'll get the people up on the floor. You don't get that as much with a pub band. They go and they play the music and that's it. Their job's done. But with a wedding band, it's the whole thing is they want to make it your night, and they know how to do that. They do this how many times a week?
Yeah.
This is their full-time job. They're not just playing in the pub on a Saturday night. They know what they're doing. And I think that's why it's going to cost more. And I know you look there at the average and it's about €2,500, and that scares people off. You can still get a professional wedding band, and for less maybe, but maybe start looking at a 3-man band. You're still going to get, they're still a wedding band. They're still going to do everything that a 5-piece band would do, but for a little bit less if that's what's in your budget. You can, and I think this goes across the board with all wedding suppliers. When we look at the survey and you see this is how much, your photographer is, and it's like, oh, wow, okay, is this what we're looking at? And it doesn't have to be like that. You can say your non-negotiables are decor, like I will spend all my money on decor. And, the ceremony music is not really my thing, so I'll pull back on that a little bit. I think there's always give and take. What's important to you might be as important to me. And don't let the averages scare you, because they are just that, they're averages. If it's something that's not important to you, you can find a supplier for a little bit less.
That's true. And I suppose on the other side of that is, if it is something really, really important, people do need to understand that an average is, it could be higher as well. If it's, especially if it's something like flowers, if you're saying flowers are really, really important, then couples should expect to spend a little bit more than the average. But then for something, like you said, that's maybe less of a priority for them, they could spend less. And then, things end up balancing out.
Yeah,
but when it comes to things like, makeup, I've often heard people say, I'm just going to go down to the high street. I'm going to walk into one of those shops where they've got the makeup counter. Someone can just do my makeup there. They've done it before for, somebody else's wedding. I went as a guest. And I suppose what people probably don't understand is just how much goes into that. You're missing having a trial. You don't know if the makeup's going to last. You don't really have as much control over what it's going to look like. It's like people just
you want
don't
it to
understand.
last. With your makeup, you want it to last. And, professional wedding makeup artist knows how the makeup's going to be photographed. And that's a huge thing. Like, you want your photographs to be amazing. And, this is why you get a wedding makeup artist. They know what they're doing throughout the whole day. And you want your makeup to still be on you at 3 a.m.
Yes, that's true.
They're also skin experts, so they're going to do the trial on you beforehand, and they will have on the morning. They will have the makeup that suits your skin, that will stay on your skin. If you have blemishes, they'll be prepared for the blemishes. There's a thing a lot of people don't know with photography. You can get, is it flashback? I can't remember what it calls, but your face will turn out completely white if the wrong makeup is used.
Yes.
So they know the right makeup to use for a professional photographer. And don't forget that it's one day in your life you're going to have a professional photographer in your face all day long taking photographs, and this has to remain perfect. And I mean, anybody can do their perfect and it'll last a couple of hours, but you're going to go from maybe 10 a.m. in the morning until 10 p.m. dancing, kissing, hugging, all of that kind of stuff. And all of this has to stay in place. The only thing you'll top up is the lipstick. So it's so worth paying the extra. And people say, why am I paying so much for a makeup artist? But the products they use are top quality and very, very expensive. They have years and years of experience behind them. And you're putting all your faith in somebody with all this experience to make you look your very best on the biggest day of your life. And, it really is worth it to have confidence going out in the morning of your wedding, that you look your best and you're going to stay looking your best all day. It is pricier, but it's not just because, it's a wedding, stick on the zeros. It's because they do an amazing job with amazing products and they have tons and tons of experience, and they're professionals. That's what you're paying for.
That is true.
One thing to remember also is, if you, for example, a makeup artist, and you're not someone who usually gets their makeup done, you don't understand why it's so much more. For any supplier, just ask,
Yeah.
Any suppliers, they won't mind explaining to you, well, the reason why it's more is because X, Y, and Z. I suppose when you're doing it day in and day out, you just presume everybody knows what goes into your work. But, sometimes you don't know. And any supplier will be happy to explain why, it's like why I'm more expensive as a bridal makeup artist than the lady down on the high street,
Yeah.
We do this every day. We explain to people they don't understand. It's like, oh my God, I want a wedding card to take me literally 5 minutes down the road, and my venue is only half an hour away, and we're only going for photographs like 40 minutes away, and like it's not far. Why is it so much for a wedding card? Again, as Elaine said, ask your chauffeur company and they'll explain everything to you. That man is taking an entire day off work, or lady is taking an entire day for you. That car won't be hired out to anybody else. If you were getting into my car right now in your lovely gown, I would be throwing sheets on the seats and everything to make sure you're clean. But that car is kept immaculate. He cleans it all day while you're in your church or wherever. He's cleaning the car again. And, there's reasons behind, like Elaine said, ask what the reasons are. And there's very good reasons why you do pay that bit more for weddings.
That is true. I think we touched on this a little bit, while we were talking through some different examples about, the photographer. And I know, Caroline, you mentioned, all day the photographer is going to be like in your face, getting your pictures. And I think something that a lot of couples don't realize is the photographer is the person that you will spend the most time with on the wedding day. It's not your new spouse. It's not your bridesmaids. It's not your parents. It's literally your photographer. And so you got to make sure that you're hiring somebody that you know. Like, you have to spend time getting to know them because you want to feel comfortable with that person. And, you've got to make sure that you actually get along with each other. And so it's another area that I suppose couples are trying to save some money in, because you see
I've had a little bit of experience in that now. It's many years ago, so nobody will know who my photographer was. But I was living in another country. We didn't have Zoom. There wasn't, phone calls were so expensive and whatever. And my photographer was here in Ireland. So I had no real communication with him before the wedding. So I recommend speaking in person if possible. Definitely a Zoom meeting. But speak to your photographer and make sure it's somebody that you can get along with. My photographer didn't understand that I was extremely camera shy and just very, very shy, like very shy. And he got a bit annoyed with me, let's say. So, yeah, we didn't really hit it off. So, I mean, it's so important to hire a professional and to know that that person who's going to be there photographing you having your makeup applied and going to be there through the most important and personal moments of the biggest day of your life, you make sure that you get a professional and it's somebody who you can get along with. Somebody who you can vibe with, because that's going to make such a big difference to your photographs.
Yeah, it's true. And I suppose the other side of things is it's not just somebody who knows how to take good photos, although that is definitely a piece of the puzzle, but it's somebody who's got great equipment, backup equipment in case something goes wrong. Somebody who has a backup plan if they wake up and they're really ill on the day of the wedding. And, all of those kinds of things that if it's just some person from the local college who's learning how to take pictures, they're not going to have any of that stuff.
There's different types of photographers as well. There's sports photographers, there's food photographers, but there's wedding photographers, and like they are in a league of their own. They're amazing. They will have a professional photographer, will have a network of other photographers who they can pick the phone up and call and say, I need somebody here in 20 minutes. My car's broke down, or God forbid, my leg is broken. I need somebody here. And they have that. They also, Weddings Online photographers have all the photographers that we have in HIGM and Weddings Online that they can call on and that we can call on for them straight away, send them off down. They have a second camera, a third camera. These cameras, so expensive, like they pay a huge amount of money for these. They have backups on everything. They often have a second shooter with them. And they arrive in the morning. You have all your consultations before your wedding day. They will probably arrive soon after your hair and makeup people in the morning. They will spend the entire day with you. Remember to feed them, please. They're on their feet all day. But they work the entire day, and they're on their feet all day. It doesn't end there. There's hours of editing after your wedding, before you get your photographs, before you get the most amazing photographs you'll ever have in your life. So again, when it comes to why is a photographer? They're just taking a few pictures. It's a lot more than just a few pictures. And, I've seen where people have gotten their photographs back and next door's bins are in the background and the bride never was looking at the camera in one single photograph. Really and truly, it's so worth doing your research and paying more for a professional.
I have some experience, and it was before I knew all what I know now about weddings for my own wedding. And we had a family friend. He's a great guy and he's a sports photographer, and he, his pictures are great. And I thought, this guy is going to do a great job and we get on great with him. He'll do our wedding photography. So he did, and he did a great job on the day. And we got our photos back, and we have some lovely photos, but they weren't the wedding-y photos that I thought I was going to get. Yeah. And, we were just looking through them all. And then we realized there was some family shots not taken and, different things that as a professional wedding photographer, they wouldn't forget any of these things. They would know what poses to put you in. Now thinking back, we kind of just stood there and smiled. We weren't given any direction, and that's absolutely not his fault. He does sports photography. He's not a wedding photographer,
Yeah.
And we probably put him on the spot by asking him to do it for us. He probably couldn't say no.
Yeah.
But looking back now, it's if I only knew then what I know now, I definitely would have been getting a professional wedding photographer.
This is why we want the members of Help I'm Getting Married to ask us questions. Ask us about all these things. Ask us why I should choose this florist or that photographer or this car company, because we have years and years and years of experience and thousands of stories of things that went wrong, that shouldn't have went wrong, that we can share with people. We have that experience now that we can say, you need to make sure of this and make sure of that. Research, and then research. That's the most important tip we'd ever give you.
That's amazing. And
ask questions.
That is so good. And speaking of tips, I thought, as we, wrap up this episode, I thought what would be really helpful is to hear from you guys. Do you have any money saving tips? We've just gotten into the groove of things where we, now people are starting to understand a little bit about why things cost what they do, but that doesn't change the fact that not everybody has an unlimited budget. And so for people who do still want to have their dream wedding day, they now know that there are some suppliers that they really shouldn't skimp on. How can people save money? Do you have any practical advice that you can share?
I think one piece of advice I would always give to a newly engaged couple is don't make hasty decisions in the excitement of the engagement, and everyone's so happy for you and thrilled for you, and everyone's congratulating you, and everyone is asking about the big day. When's the big day? And all your friends are around you, excited for you, your sisters, everyone. And sometimes brides-to-be make very hasty decisions about bridesmaids. And they're like, Elaine, I want you to be my bridesmaid, and Kelly, and I'm going to have Charlene and Cheryl and Kira, and I'm going to have all you guys as my bridesmaids, and you haven't done your research, and you don't know how much it costs today to have a bridesmaid. If you haven't worked out your budget and you haven't worked out how much you can spend on a bridal party, don't ask anybody. Don't, if you have 5 bridesmaids and 5 groomsmen, there's suit hire, shirts, maybe shoes, there's dresses, shoes, hair, makeup, gifts, the list goes on, and it can run into thousands. So that would be my tip from the very get-go. As soon as you get engaged, zip it when it comes to the bridal party. Work out your budget first. Make sure you know what you can afford to spend on a bridal party, and then make it very special, whether it's just one bridesmaid and best man, or it's 5, or it's getting more and more and more popular that people don't have a bridal party and they just have people doing readings or little poems or signing the register and things like that. Just think it through and ask us for advice. We will give you the best advice. We have seen it all and heard it all. That's my tip.
That's great.
My tip, I'd say, would be, again, from the very beginning, you get engaged and you kind of jump into looking for your venue before you've done too much research. And I would say, when you're going out looking for your venues and you go and you see these stunning venues, from the get-go, ask them, if you're getting married in the venue, do you have to pay for the ceremony room? Because that could be €500 just like that. And a lot of venues will give it to you free of charge. So that's something to think about. Do they include any decor? Because that might save you a lot of money. If the venue already include a lot of decor, that's great. Can you bring your own wine? And if so, how much is the corkage? Because that might work out a lot cheaper for you. And then I would say a lot of venues now, more and more, are starting to do the all-inclusive packages. So these can include your photographer, your band, your DJ, florist, decor, any of these things. And sometimes when people see an all-inclusive package and they're like, oh, I don't know, because I want to pick my band. In most cases, the venue will give you 3 bands to choose from, or 3 florists, or 3 bakers for your cake. So you're not being really restricted, but you can actually save yourself thousands. And along with that, if you don't go for an all-inclusive package, you have to give a deposit for your band, your photographer, your cake supplier. So off the bat, if you go with an all-inclusive package, they might only include 2 of these things. They could include them all. But right now, you don't have to dish out those deposits. And it can save you a lot of money. So I would advise, if you're kind of thinking, you're looking at your budget and seeing where you can save a bit of money, an all-inclusive package is a great idea.
That's amazing. You guys have given so much expert advice. And so for people who aren't yet in the group, it's called HIGM, Help I'm Getting Married. And if you're getting married in Ireland, or if you live in Ireland and you're getting married abroad, either way, this is the perfect space to be in, to be surrounded by 70,000 other engaged couples, wedding professionals and experts who can answer questions. It really is a game changer for the Irish wedding community. And so I highly recommend that people join the group. And so I'll put a link to the group in the description for this episode so people know where to go. But Caroline and Elaine, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. And I'm so happy
for having us, Kelly.
Happy to have you here. Thank you. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.